up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Give Up the Ship podcast. It's episode 61. Today, I got to talk to a former sailor that I served with, and I've been wanting to talk to a quote-unquote junior enlisted nuclear trained person, of which this man is, and he's also just an interesting dude. We talk about his music, which he's getting really into, and I just like supporting everything that is a veteran or active duty member, like doing something cool, creative, whatever. I just veteran-owned businesses, anything I like, any of those types of things, if I can support it or give it a push. I like to do that, and I just think it's interesting to see kind of the human side of sailors, but we also got into a lot of interesting like leadership stuff and his experiences as a nuclear trained ET. So check it out, and I hope you guys enjoy it. All right. So the way I always start is just give, and you don't have to give all the details in the world. It's completely up to you how much you share, but like start with like your background in the Navy, like what you do, how you ended up here, et cetera. And then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm ETN1 Gonzalez. I joined the Navy in 2014, went into the recruiting office to be a corpsman, because that's what my...
Me too, oddly enough.
That's what my father-in-law was, and of course, cool. I'm marrying his daughter, so he's like, hey, why don't you join the Navy? It'd be really great if you left. So I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds good. So I went to go join the Navy. I guess I got a pretty good score on my ASVAB, and of course he's like, hey, do you like money? And I was like, yeah, I like money. And he's just like, why don't you be a nuke? And I was like, I have no idea. I'm like right out of high school.
Yeah.
So I went to MEPS, took my ASVAB, and like I said, scored pretty well, I guess. And then I joined to be a nuke. I was in like DEP for like 11 months or so.
Silly rabbit. Dude, when they had me in there and I got a high ASVAB score, and they're like, congratulations, you qualified to be a nuke. I'm like, I don't want to be a nuke. I already did. I'm a researcher. Like I come in prepared. I knew exactly what I wanted
I
to do.
did not.
I wanted to be an FMF corpsman, and then if that was cool, I would go maybe do some other stuff. But I was just looking for an adventure before I went on to do whatever I was going to do with my life.
Yeah, the whole like see the world thing was like pretty cool. My wife and I had recently gotten married like right before I joined. So it was like, the Navy thing I think is good for our future, right? Like I wanted to go to college for music, and I was like, realistically, I could probably never make a good living off of that. So let me make something like more stable career choice. And so I joined the Navy 2014, like then from there, from boot camp, I went to Charleston, did my schooling there. And then I went from there to Washington and did a sea tour there. And then
you met the best CS senior chief in all of the land. And he enriched your life in so many ways.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly showed me that yelling does actually do something.
Sometimes when judiciously applied in the correct situations.
Yeah. It's, pick and choose. And then,
most of the time I wasn't yelling either. I feel like it's like air quotes yelling. I like raise my voice a lot because I'm a passionate dude. But like when I'm actually screaming, like,
I wouldn't say like forehead vein yelling or anything like that. But it was definitely got the point across. And the shiniest boots in the fleet, I'd have to say. So from the sea duty, I'm currently now in shore duty, kind of. It's it's a decommission of a submarine, 2, I guess, here in Washington. Yep. So
you guys just kind of like are there to monitor the reactors because they're not yanked out yet, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically.
We're just kind of overseeing like defueling and then eventually scrapping it, for both boats. Yeah. So, but yeah, I've been in the Navy 6.5 years. So April will be 7. So I'm still kind of, it feels like I'm still kind of new, like, feels like junior sailor still.
A little. And we'll talk about some of that because that'll be a question for later is like how fast you guys, like they use rank as an incentive for nukes. And I've seen a whole bunch of people put in leadership positions that were far from ready as a result, but we'll get to that later. So you said early on, obviously music was a passion. How did you, because I was always walking by the weapons office and I can hear you in there playing the guitar and singing, but I was like, I'm like, he sounds great, but like, I didn't know it was this level of a passion. How did it go from like, I just want to go to school for music, but I don't think I can make a living at it, to what you're doing now?
Well, so I think early on, like growing up, like my dad was like in a band back in like the 60s and the 70s. And like growing up, like it was always music like in my house all the time.
Right.
So like, introducing me to music, and then like I started playing guitar when I was like 12. And then like I was playing like, lead guitar and, heavy metal and stuff like that, like the angry at your parents kind of music. So I was, I was doing that for a long time. And, then I was like, oh, I kind of want to start singing. Like if I want to do shows, like it's going to be really hard for me to be able to take this anywhere. Like it's kind of like, doing that type of music. It's not really as, I mean, I wouldn't say as popular, but it's not like, I can't go to like the park and play like death metal in front of like, a fountain. And then people are like, hey,
I mean, maybe it depends on what fountain and where.
Yeah, exactly. But, not in Charleston, but yeah. So, I in Charleston, I kind of started playing more like acoustic guitar and like piano and singing and stuff like that. And then I found out I really liked it. I was like pretty like new to it. So like not very good at it then. Not that I feel like I'm that great at it now, but like I definitely had a long way to go.
Right.
So I just kind of kept up with it. As far as before the Navy, like music was always a big thing. I was still playing lead guitar at the time. I'm like, hey, I want to go to college and I want to study music. And it's just kind of one of those things where like as a 16, 17-year-old, like just about to graduate high school, I was like, this is probably not the right choice for me to make. Cause it's like, I can't really think of too many people that I know personally that were like, yep, I went to do music and I was really successful at it. Like my dad was, he was doing like, asphalting driveways, that's, he didn't follow music all the way through. I'm like, okay, maybe it's not as, easy as my 16-year-old brain thought it would be at the time. So I was like, let me get something more stable. So I ended up joining the Navy.
Is the Navy going to be a career, do you think? Or it depends on if you get a record deal?
I mean, that's a good point. So like I go back and forth a lot. Like whenever I was first joining the Navy, it was like I walked into the recruiting office and I'm like, hey, I'm here to sign up for 20 years. And then like the guy's like, whoa, take it easy. Like, why don't we take it one listener at a time? You don't know what you're
saying.
Yeah. He was a Nuki T on a surface, but he was a carrier.
He was probably throwing red flags up in the air, like power down.
Yeah, but he still told me, like, he still was like, hey, Nuke is the way you want to go. And I was like, all right.
Did he really? Wow.
Yeah. Like that's, he's like, I know that like you're never going to find a job, whether it's in the Navy or whether it's in the, civilian world where it's just like, hey, I love my job. Every day's a cakewalk.
Yeah. There's unicorns out there that love their job and they're in career fields like that where you're just like, really?
I can't really see myself, like I do like some aspects of my job, but there's like, it's just not, I don't think it's for me, like to do 20 years. But like I said, I kind of go back and forth because there's a lot of like really great benefits that you can get.
Right. And dude, this whole COVID thing scared me in a way where because like I'm so close to retirement that it's like I'll have a lot of the stability pieces of the benefits for the rest of my life at this point. Not exactly the same, obviously, but like my pension's going to drop once a month no matter what. And that was kind of one of the things, like as I was going through the cancer treatment, I was like kind of monitoring everything. Like I had to I deleted the Facebook app off my phone for a little while just because it was so ridiculous. Like when everything was just toxic flaming of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But it was, and I just like couldn't, it was affecting my mood, man. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I think it was having that effect on a lot of people.
Yeah. So, but I didn't think I listened to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks and stuff. And I heard people talking about like how COVID was affecting people. And I'm so institutionalized because of the military that like, I didn't realize how fortunate I was before everybody got like forced to stay home and they couldn't work. And I know there's like programs and stuff that I guess are subsidizing people, but it was like when certain things were deemed like non-essential and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I got like ridiculous health insurance. Like the stuff they did during my treatment and it was like TRICARE never says no. Like they just cut the check. I mean, I don't know what it's like when you're retired. I don't know how it differs, but on active duty, like I'm government property, bro. They're going to fix me. Like it doesn't, what's it going to take? And, so that on top of I was off work for 5 months, man, like almost exactly. I did not go to work at all. And my paycheck was dropping every 2 weeks. And you're just like, man, like, this is kind of awesome. There's a whole bunch of really horrible, stressful crap I had to do for 18 years. But it's like, at the same time, I'm like,
yeah, but you'll never get that in any other career. Right. And that's like something that like I can never fault the Navy for, because it's like I've been given a lot of opportunities. As like my wife and I, we bought our first house. We were 21, right? Like I know I'm 25 now, but it's like I know a lot of people, from my high school and stuff like that are like living with their parents right now, right? And they're like working at McDonald's or they're working at like a real, not what is it? They're working at like TJ Maxx or something like that. Yeah. It's just like they're bringing home minimum wage, and it's like I'm very fortunate for that, because like my wife and I bought like a 4-bedroom house. Not that that's what we wanted, but like it was pretty expensive, like Washington wise. Like it's something that we'd never be able to do if it wasn't for the Navy. Like the Navy has set me up in a really good way, to like be fortunate with the things that I have. Like I got a lot of music stuff, it's like the only way that was paid for was because of the Navy. It's like I could drive like a 93 Toyota Corolla and like, have like a $50 guitar, but it's like, I have a lot of nice things because of what the Navy has been able to give me. It's like, we don't necessarily get a whole lot of time off. Not like, on shore duty, not like I haven't really been, like working 18-hour days or anything like that. I've had more time off on, this weird shore duty than I did on an operational boat. But it's just one of those things that's like, I can't fault the Navy for, what they've given me,
Right. What, like, I'm trying to think of, because like I guess I'll just start with the being a nuke part. So like, I've been wanting to talk to a nuke, like a quote unquote junior enlisted guy. Like, I mean, you're still within that threshold, but towards the end of it, like if you stayed in, but so it's like, I've never met a larger group of people in a profession that hate it so passionately. And it's like, even the guys like, so like your chief the whole time you were there, even the guys that like stick around and do it as a career, like passionately hate naval nuclear power. Like I've met a handful of dudes that like are fans of it, but they're unicorns. Like it doesn't happen that often. And so I've always wondered, like, for the guy that's about to go into the recruiting office and get convinced to go nuke when they do well in their ASVAB, like what about it is so mind-bendingly stressful? Like, because I can only make like observations from the outside looking in, like, oh my God, you guys do a lot of training, but like, I don't know what it's like to experience it. So I'm wondering, kind of like from somebody that's experienced it, is like, what about it is like, so, because like you go read the reactors critical, like the page, right? And it's just like, wow. Like, so how does that culturally, like what is it about it that makes it that way?
I think it's just the requirements. Like, I think that human nature is just like, you will always find a reason to complain about something, right? Like I could imagine that, like, if I was, like, I can't really, like, I'm not in anybody else's shoes, right? But like, we'll just say something like outside the Navy, right? Like if I was like working at some like factory, just like, I don't know, like, putting stickers on something, like something super mundane, just like, this is all I do. It's the easiest thing in the world. I get, paid hourly to do this. It's like, people will find, something to complain about, whether it's like, hey, this is like super mundane. Like I'm not doing anything like exciting. This is extremely boring. And then like, then there's like the whole like nuke side of it. It's like people are getting like, my biggest thing, like my biggest like argument with like when people were complaining about something, especially during like a COVID posture or something like that, where they're like, hey, come in on your duty days, and then like we'll stay a day after for like some training or whatever the case is if you have work to do. right? And then people are like, man, I can't believe I got to stay this many hours day after. It's like you're getting paid so much money.
Get 2 days off because
it's like you're getting paid. You're getting paid a lot of money to come into work, and like it's like we started instituting some like cleaning, right? So it's like the cleaning started getting like more and more. They were ramping it up because it was like the only thing that we could really do during this weird time was to like, you can go to training and then you can clean, like, and then maintain the COVID posture of like being apart from each other, that kind of stuff. Like you can do so much, right? Like when you're on a submarine, it's like you don't really have all the room in the world, but it's like, you're the highest paid janitor I know. Like I we hear that so much. We hear that like throughout our entire like the pipeline through. It's like people are like, "You're the highest paid janitor. You're the highest paid." Well,
plus, you're not allowed to complain because you get pro pay too, right?
I mean, the pro pay. I
heard you guys
cool.
really like when coners say that.
Yeah, we love that. Yeah, because it's like everybody's like,
say it a lot. And
it's like, oh yeah, it's yeah, because we're pretty much like, okay, so it's like the everybody breaks it down into like, yeah, we get paid like $5 extra a day. It's like, is it worth it? That kind of stuff.
Shut
it's
up!
Like,
I don't want to hear any complaining.
Yeah, you get paid like half a meal at McDonald's more every day. That kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, like I said, people always find a way to or a reason to complain about whatever it is that they're doing. Like I said, it's just human nature. But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So you think it's like the rigidity of like all the policies and rules and blah, because like you guys, the freaking books, man, like I'd be sitting in an ops brief and some J would come in and be like, can you hand me this ridiculously large book? I'm like, which one? There's like 100 of them and they're all bound in like rigid plastic because there's a gazillion pages in every one of them. So it's like, is that kind of what forms that type of an environment?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's just like the amount of like knowledge that you get force fed like throughout your like nuke school. It's like I'm not going to say it's equivalent to a degree, but it's like, you're pretty much taking like somebody who, if you join the Navy at 18, and then like, hey, by the time you're 20, you're going to operate in some form or another, a nuclear reactor, like, on a carrier or a submarine, whatever the case is. So it's like you get force fed information like at a really high rate of speed. And it's just a lot to take in, right? The attrition rate can be pretty bad for school. Like I think my A school was like, we started off with like 30 people and we graduated with 17. So it's like, and it's not always just like academic attrition or anything like that. Like you have people that were like, hey, we're not ready to join the Navy yet, or ever. So yeah, you got people like that too. But it's that, and then you go to the fleet where like you kind of hear like, oh, it'll be better, like it'll be better in power school. It's fun. Right, exactly. Better in power school, better prototype, better in the fleet, better after ORS. Like
better after you always
retire. Right. You always hear that it's going to get better in some aspect, but it doesn't.
Alert.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
It just changes.
Yeah, the pace kind of changes a bit, right?
I'm a Kool-Aid drinking true believer that loves the Navy. And let me tell you, let me spoil the surprise. It doesn't get better. The difficulty level and mind-bending mental stress just morphs into something new and exciting. And you get paid a little more, too. That's nice. I get paid a lot more than I did back then. But
oh, yeah. Heck yeah. That's good. But yeah, like, I mean, I get paid a very decent paycheck every 2 weeks to... as of right now, like on shore duty, like, I'm standing duty every 5 days and, and the workload really isn't that bad. So like this shore duty that I have now, like I have no complaints about at all. Like I like all the people there. The chain of command is great. So it's just one of those things. But like, as far as what, like, it's just the amount of requirements that we have. And then like, the trainings every week are kind of a pain. They're super boring, but you got to sit through them. And then like the tests that we have to take every month, all the quals and everything like that, like everything is at such a rapid pace, and you don't really have time to kind of take a break because you're always like training for something, right? You're either training for a CTE, or you're training for an ORS exam, or you're training for the, what's it called? Like the actual ORS, not just, just the exam, but like all the drills, like you're doing a lot of stuff. And then like, I think the biggest thing that like you will hear a lot is like whenever you pull in after, an underway or a deployment or whatever, and we have to shut down. and like, they put Liberty down. And then we hear like, oh, hey, Coners get to go home. And it's like, here we are, all of engineering is back here shutting down the reactor.
Because I don't think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, but I don't think Coner is just a submarine term, right? It's not. They don't do nukes say that on surface ships too. I imagine it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Can you explain what a Coner is? Just so people know.
Anybody forward of the engine room watertight door is pretty much how we say it. But
that's because the sonar dome is effective. Like the front, the submarines are teardrop shaped, so it's kind of like a cone. Like the forward end of the submarine is shaped in a cone, kind of. Which honestly, like really, the engine room shaped more like a cone, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I didn't invent the term. I just kind of somebody told me that, and I just followed through it. But it's just like that kind of thing. Like not necessarily like there's a great disparity or anything like that, because it's like we're all underway. It's like everybody will complain like, oh, the workload. Like you hear the term like shower techs a lot. It's like, what do they really do? Like, what are they doing in there?
I was blown away by the raw deal that missile techs get on BNs. Like because I'd never done a ballistic missile submarine until this most recent one. And good God, man, those guys, because it's like, they're like forward nukes. Like because I've gone to all their briefs and I've watched them like work through all their procedures. And it's like, for obvious reasons, because they're responsible for nuclear missiles that we may or may not have on board. Right. It's like, the procedures, like all the Swiss stuff, it reminds me a lot of like nuke world stuff, like the type of like how big of a deal it is if they screw something up, blah, blah, blah. And, God, those guys work a lot. Like at sea is like a sweeter deal for them than in port. Like I feel like they've got a way better quality of life when we're deployed. It's like, that's gross.
You're right. Yeah. No, it's like whenever I was going through my qual process, like as a RC dibber, it was like that stuff got related to me a lot, like especially sitting boards with like the captain, for like reactor operator or whatever the case was. It was just like, hey, like, these people like missile techs, like their procedures are, just as strict, if not more than like your procedures, right? It's like their stuff's pretty important. It's like our stuff is important too, but it's like a different, I mean, it all deals with nuclear, but it was just like it was stressed on me a lot. It's like I try not to like be the person that's like, I have the worst deal. Like I try not to like, one of those people that like one ups everybody. That's like, it's like, man, my freaking procedure had like 10 steps. It was terrible. It's like, well, mine had 11, like I'm not,
mine is 27 pages.
I try not to be that type of person, but it's like, like, I mean, the job in general is just hard. Like,
I feel like you're shockingly well adjusted for a submarine nuke too, though. Like, because it seems like we know a lot of the same people, and I've interacted with a lot of the junior enlisted nukes kind of on purpose, because it seemed like culturally, especially with one, I'm thinking of one division in particular that you could probably put together pretty quickly. I mean, there was really two. Like when I first showed up, there was a different nuclear division that was having a lot of trouble. And then probably as I was just before I left, there was a different one because they got a new chief, and there was just a lot of like turmoil, and it was just like, it was, I don't know, man. There was just rage under the surface all the time with a lot of those guys, and it was just like, especially the latter one, the latter example. I don't want to use the rage,
I understand,
but it was like, not only did they, and the chief had a lot to do with it. I actually had a lot of conversations with him because he was a new chief, and he really genuinely wanted to do well and wanted to like take care of his division. But I think when he
agree with more.
Yeah, when he went out there and tried to apply things in practice, like in real life, it was like as soon as those guys challenged him, he like started defaulting to like this weird like aggro thing. Like it wasn't him. It wasn't who he was.
Right.
And it's like, dude, you just gotta like, one, you have such a senior division. And he did, like, I kept talking to him. I'm like, man, you need to earn the trust of your division. And these guys are all super senior, and they're used to a completely different, like, type of leader that let them kind of just do their thing and run everything themselves. And now you're trying to micromanage everything. And it's just like, that's not going to work. They're going to freak out. And especially those guys, like, being as senior as they were, a lot of them were also, like, in that weird, like, angsty, angry, like stage of their first enlistment, which I feel like everybody probably, unless they're really fortunate,
they were like at the age of like, between like 14 and 16.
Yeah.
Like, and they were like right there at like that age where like they were,
man,
like, I don't like you, Dad. Like,
but it's like, it's extremely easy to like figure out a way to work with those type of personalities being in the place that they're in. If you're open to like learning and like having this, because I talk to those guys all the time. And weirdly, I think part of it is a little nature channel-y, like where it's like I walk in a room and people are not thinking that, oh, I could totally walk all over that dude. Like, because I established that that's probably not a good life choice. But I also spent a lot of time talking to those guys and like listening to them and valuing their opinion and like taking the things that they told me, because I was basically the ACOB the whole time I was there. And like if I wasn't the actual cob at the time. And so it was just like, I would take a lot of the things that we were supposed to be doing as a command or whatever. And I'd go find certain people and they were some of them. And I'd be like, hey, is this stupid? Like poke holes in this, because this sounds stupid, but I'm not sure why, like, or whatever. And I would actually listen to those guys. And I kept trying to tell him, like I'd sit him, he'd come in all frustrated. And like one of them told him to go F himself or whatever. And he'd like fire the LPO for some reason or whatever. And it was just like, you'd sit there and it was like, he'd be talking and me and a couple other like senior chiefs are in there. And we're just all kind of smirking. And it's just like, he would get done. And then I'd try to like talk him through it. And the conversation would be productive, but then it was almost like his brain would short circuit every time they like poked at him, you know what I mean? And he'd freak out and it's like they're winning. They're doing this because it's hilarious and because they know they can, because you're allowing it to happen and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, it probably wasn't recoverable towards the end there anyway. And then when they got that last chief because of the merger and stuff, it was like immediately like, you just looked at that dude and you're like, yeah, he's going to be fine. I didn't know him that well, but I had conversations with him in the chief's quarters and it was just like, yeah, he's going to be fine. He's not going to have any issues. He's immediately going to like walk in and command respect, but he's also going to like take care of them and listen to them and do the thing.
Yeah, he's going to do the chief stuff that they need, and then he's going to let the division do the divisional stuff that they need to do. Yeah,
right. Yeah, weird how that is. So this is one that this is another I've always wanted to ask a junior nuke this. So, and I need to get a nuke chief on here too to kind of have this same conversation, because I know you've listened to some of the podcasts, but I talk a ton about it's evolved into a trust divide between like the chief's mess and everyone, because like as I've talked about it, I've had like officers reach out and all these other people, and they're like, no, it's not just junior enlisted, like everybody has an issue. I'm like, oh, okay, so now the wardrooms, like, so it's whether perceived or real, like, and I think it's pretty real, but a lot of times I think it's just a perception thing too, and it's all, mushed together into one, because of course everything that everybody experiences is real, and it's what they think it is only from their perspective. But is that there's a huge like just chasm between junior enlisted, junior officers, whoever else. I mean, probably some senior officers too, if they got burned by a chief when they were young. Just a chasm and divide type deal with trust, where you go on, like, because I've recently, in the last year of my life, I discovered Reddit. I had a kid that listened to podcasts. I know. So I had a kid that listened to podcasts, and he's like, you should post your stuff on Reddit. And I was like, I've heard of it, but like, why would I post my stuff on Reddit? And he kind of explained it to me. And he's like, because I'm always asking for feedback and stuff. And he's like, oh, you're going to get feedback. And I was like, cool. Cause like up to that point, I've been doing this for 5+ years.
Yeah.
I almost universally have gotten positive feedback, and the constructive criticism that I've gotten is like super nice constructive criticism. And I'm always
looking for hate. Yeah.
Always asking, but I'm always asking because I feel like the most productive feedback I ever got was from those angsty, angry dudes. Like I'd go find the E5 that was, my buddy so he described it as the guy holding court in the smoke pit that like looked like he slept in his uniform and needed a haircut. But like you think of the like little pint-sized FT that he was one of the guys. Like we would go back and forth joking around all the time, and he would push the limit of what he should be saying to a guy like me. But I could get so much from that kid because he was one of those guys where he was like really well liked, really popular, knew what the crew felt and like for real. And he was willing to say it to me.
Yeah.
And we would have those conversations, but I think he also knew that I would put that information to good use too. But that was the kind of feedback that I always wanted. And so when I got on Reddit and I started posting the episodes, I actually asked the question, why is there a trust divide between the Chiefs Mess and Junior Enlisted? And I swear to God, I got like 150 responses in like 2 days. I've printed it out and like highlighted it and sent it to people. And because like there's a lot of stories about like just the insane things people have experienced at the hands of Chiefs. And I'm like,
see, that's kind of what I was going to go for. I think it's just more of an experience thing.
Yeah. But I was going to say like, even if 10% of them are true, like there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, what I was going to ask is like, so first, because I've just talked that interlude or the prelude right there was so much about Chief stuff. I'll ask that first is like, what was your experience with nuclear trained Chiefs? And really not just, I guess not nuclear trained Chiefs. What was your experience with Chiefs in general? Because it doesn't matter. If once they're pinned, it's like we're all Chiefs. It doesn't make a difference. I have a follow-on question that is specific to nukes, but because you guys have a really unique like career progression, but advancement and all the incentives they use to retain you guys. But what was your experience just with Chiefs in general, like during your first enlistment? I mean, and kind of like just up to this point, kind of in that vein, like, was it just your experience was hit or miss and you had some good ones and you had some bad ones, or like, what was your experience? And then do you kind of perceive there to be an issue like overall with image and just like all the crap, like all the meme based stuff that you see about Chiefs, I feel like is probably a barrier to communication and trust in general. But
I mean, I think it's more just like I said, it's more experience like based, right? Like I never like, especially in the fleet, like I never really had a bad experience like with a chief. Like even on the ride that I went on, but it's like I kind of just like really like I just no, not really. Like I've definitely been like yelled at before, you know, but that's just part of the job. But happens, right. You know, it's like I guess going through like boot camp, you're like, you know, every chief there is just like knife hand yelling, like, and that's what you have like the expectation, like this is what they're supposed to be.
It's a character. Yeah. They're playing like, a character.
No, I agree
RDC.
With that. Yeah. It's like, you don't really learn that until you like
until you're not there anymore.
Yeah. You know, but it's like, okay, this is what my expectation of what a chief is supposed to be. Right. It's like the only way that they can make you better is by like wrestling you into submission using loud words and knife hands.
What's interesting too is, and you should Google this later, it's called the Warrior Toughness Program. It's like they have instituted this stuff at RTC and it's supposed to get expanded like in one flavor or another to the whole fleet at some point. But they're basically trying to address like mental health issues that manifest later because of stress or whatever. They're trying to address them before they happen. So at RTC, they're trying to like equip recruits with like better communication skills, coping mechanisms, because no matter what, it's going to be stressful, stuff like that. So they're trying to give them skills to better like deal with all of the mind bending stress and better communicate when they get like, cause a lot of times I feel like when there is like friction between a leader and junior sailors, a lot of the time, sometimes they're just a bad leader and they're a cancer and they need to go away. And that happens. It's real. It's on the cover of the Navy Times a lot. Like, but most of the time when I've experienced it, it's a junior chief trying to figure out how to be a good leader and trying to figure out how to communicate and not understanding how to get through to those sailors. Like the one I talked about earlier, like he would come in almost in tears, man. And he was just like, I don't know what to do, man. I just want to take care of these guys and I just want to do the right thing. And I just want our division to do well. And it's like, they hate me and they're just fighting me for every inch. And it's like, and most of the time those are conversations that happen, but the perception on the end of the junior sailors that this guy's just an idiot and he hates us and he's like a bad chief.
It's kind of like that whole, like, you know, like making a first impression kind of thing, you know, it's like I wasn't there for the first impression. Right.
I
so
heard
it's
it was
like,
really bad.
right. So it's like you make that first impression and then like people make assumptions about you. And then they're like, okay, this is the type of person he is. Whether he's like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Like, I'm not trying to do this to hurt you guys. I'm trying to do it to help you. Like, I want is to be, a good chief. All I want is to help you. But it's like, when you've already made that impression, it's hard for people to adjust their mindset to be like, hey, this guy's here to help me.
So many baby chiefs have such a hard time accepting help. And I mean that in like every possible like iteration I get. Like, so they have a hard time coming into the chief's mess and accepting criticism and advice and like letting a guy like me mentor them into a better chief. Like they feel like once they put on anchors, they just need to be this like all knowing, all seeing oracle of leadership. And it's like, it's not going to happen ever. It didn't happen for me. It still doesn't happen for me. Like, but then also like the smartest thing I ever did. And I remember as an LPO, it's like where the seed was planted at least, but I had this aha moment because I was shockingly, I know, like, so hold on to your seat. I was a screamer. As an LPO, right? Yeah. So as a young CS1, all I did was scream, man. I was like, I'm ruling with an iron fist. And I was just like, thou shalt do what I said because I said so kind of guy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I wasn't doing it out of some like sense of like, I want to dominate these guys and I want them to feel small. It was like, I recognized all the potential in them and I wanted them to do better. And it's like, my bar's up here and I know you guys can do it. So why aren't you doing it? And I was flipping out all the time. And I was standing in the galley one day, just like flame spraying them. And I saw, 3 seconds in, they're like glazed over looks. Everybody had unplugged and tuned out.
Yeah.
And I just like stopped and I looked at him and I just walked out of the galley and I was just like, this is clearly not working. And I got to figure out how I'm going to get through these guys. Cause that's all I was trying to do. And I'm sure they didn't like perceive it that way, but
I think I'd have a hard time perceiving it that way too.
Yeah.
In all
but
fairness.
the seed was planted for me where it was just like, I need to be able to like leverage whatever mode, like everybody's different, right? And this I discovered later, but I need to figure out what their motivation is and exploit that motivator. So everybody's going to get treated differently. I can't apply like a quote unquote leadership style because it doesn't work. Like I can't use one cookie cutter approach for everybody.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was going to ask you about. Like if if growing up in the Navy, like that kind of, for lack of a better term, I guess, like what was the leadership style that you were most like receptive to? Like, what were you drawn to? And like, what made you decide like, yelling is the way that I, am going to develop my leadership style.
It's like when I was coming up, I had a lot of that super to the point, like, cause it was a lot different back then. So it was like, back then I got like screamed at. I got told I was stupid. I got told I was useless. I got told I would never amount to anything, blah, blah, like stuff like that, where I was just like, I was constantly getting screamed at and demeaned and just like attacked.
Yeah. Things that like we are, know aren't really good for people. Right.
What was supposed to be my leadership was like destroying any motivation and self-esteem I had back then. And I mean, I was young, dude. So that was, I was the guy that was always like, I'm going to be different. I'm never going to do that stuff. Like I'm going to be the leader that listens to my people and blah, blah, blah. But then it was like, once I got into the position, I like freaked out a little bit because I had a lot of demands on me that I didn't recognize from the bottom looking up. And then I realized how little I actually knew about leadership and communication and all those things at the time. Yeah. So I like freaked out a little bit and was like, oh my God, I got to get this done right now. So I like defaulted. I like almost regressed back to the only thing I ever knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so just kind of product of your environment.
Kind of, yeah. It was weird. But then once I realized how stupid I was being, I started correcting it slowly. And that was what was like, I realized that if the smartest thing I ever did is to get back to what I said earlier is like, I started listening to my guys. Like I started sitting down and talking to them. And like I'd be back then we wrote a menu. It wasn't like the standard core crap that we have now.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
So I would be writing the menu for the next deployment, and I would sit down with the guys that actually had to go in the galley and do it and be like, go through this and QA it and make sure it makes sense. Because there's like meals you'll write, and because we do a lot from scratch on submarines and even more so on fast boats, it's like if I'm telling like a night baker to make like 15 pies and cookies and a really complicated breakfast pastry. Like, it's really difficult to get all that done and do Mitterrats and breakfast and make white bread or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a huge ask. And so they would sit down and look at it and be like, can we swap these things? And so like that way, because that way I can like keep the galley cleaner and I can do all these other things. And it's more balanced, because I don't want to put them in there and stress them out for no reason.
Yeah, I think that they were more receptive to that, and they were more willing to try and be better at their own job. More.
And on top of that, it was like they had ownership. They had like a stake in it. Like, you wrote the menu, dude. Like, really, you're the one that said this was okay. Because there's a couple times where they had a bright idea fairy moment, and like it didn't work out the way they thought in their mind. But it's like, the menu's signed by the captain now, man. You're gonna have to roll with that.
You learn from your mistake. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, and the more I did it, the more I realized how productive it was, to the point where when I got to the boat we were on together, it was like, that's all I did, man. Because I'd never been on a boomer before. So I showed up, and the two most senior guys, I was just like, all right, teach me. Like, what do you guys normally do? There were some things that I obviously changed, but it was like, I talked to them first and I said, okay, so in a perfect world, how would you do it? Like, because what do you normally do isn't necessarily what they wanted to do. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, so if we were going to change this to make it better, what would you guys do? Oh, like, I'd get rid of this stupid thing. Like, you know what I mean? You start getting all that, and it's like, all right. And if I could accomplish all the things that I needed to, which at the end of the day, really all they are is it's when I do inspections, I tell people, like, the only three things the CO cares about are, is the crew happy? Are we going to run out of food? And is anybody going to get sick as a result of my food service operation? Other than that, I don't care about any of the rest of your inspection checklist. And I get it. Like, it's food service. Like, the only three things you care about are you going to limit my mission? Is the crew happy while they're doing my mission? And, basically, are you going to limit my mission as both endurance, like inventory management and stuff, and the sanitation portion? Because if everybody gets sick, we're screwed. But that's all he cares about. So as long as I can get all those things done, and I'm meeting, like, I have a book too that has a bunch of rules in it, and it's like, when I was going to get inspected, I had a checklist I had to go by. So I had to meet all those requirements. So as long as we're checking the boxes on that checklist, and nobody's going to get sick, and I'm not going to run out of food, and the crew's going to be happy about it, because there's stupid things on there that I need the crew to be happy about. It's, Mediterranean brown rice.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I know you were thinking it. I could feel it. But it's like, that was on the Navy Senior Corps menu, and I was literally told it was like a red line if I wasn't maliciously complying to the Navy Senior Corps menu. So I just decided for that patrol, whatever's on there is what we're making. I don't care how anybody feels about it, because I'm not failing an inspection because some overzealous inspector comes down here and maliciously complies to some stupid requirement. Right. Turns out that wasn't true, but I had a master chief that did inspections tell me that. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm erring on the side of caution.
Yeah. That's understandable.
But yeah. And it's like, once I started listening, but like, these leaders, like, they don't, because all the junior sailors that I see that are like the most vocal about this stuff, like me, because I was that guy as a salty second class on my first submarine that was like, these guys are so stupid. I could do it so much better when I'm in charge, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. When they end up in the position, a lot of them default back to, like, it's this very primitive style of leadership where it's like they're trying to only use like an authoritarian style, like, I have legitimate power and I'm going to abuse it to get you, like, I'm just going to beat you into submission and try to get you to do what I want you to do. And it does not work. There is a time and a place for it, but it's pretty rare. And so I feel like that's kind of that for me. It was like, back in the day, like, there were good ones out there, but a lot of it was very authoritative. Like, because I'm chief and I said so. And I also think too, though, I was probably the beginning of the wave of sailors that were asking why too much. So it was like, there was just like a conformity to it, where it was just like, you just did it because that's what was expected of you. Not that we didn't still hate it and ask why and all those other things, but I think we were the beginning of the generation that needed the explanation more than the previous ones. So I think it's kind of altered the way people lead in a way, or it's at least starting to, because I have a lot of conversations with a lot of chiefs that see the same problems I do, but they also have adapted in a lot of the same ways that I have. And so I'm like, it's like, I'm not the only one doing it. I'm not the only one recognizing the difference in the needs of junior sailors that we have today, instead of the way I came up. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I was fortunate enough to, like, my first experience in the fleet was the chief that I had, now senior chief. And he was abrasive to anybody that wasn't in his division. Like he was like a big teddy bear.
Teddy bear. Yeah, I was going to say he was
for his division. Like, he absolutely like did everything that he could. And, so I was fortunate enough to have that as my first experience, like in the fleet. Like I didn't know, but he was very much like, hey, if I tell you to do something, like I will always try my best to figure out why, and give you an answer of why I am telling you to do this. Right. And sometimes the answer is going to be because I said so. And that's just what it's going to be. But he was very good. Like I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, there was always a reason of, hey, this is why we're doing this way, or this is why we're doing it at this time. So
the difference being that he had already established a trust within a rapport with you guys. So that when he had to say, because I said so, you guys were just like, okay.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's a good reason because he's demonstrated to you time and time again and explaining you time and time again what the reasons are. So it's if you don't already know the reason, and if he doesn't have time to explain it to you, you're just going to go do it because you trust him.
Right.
That's
he fought for us enough. Yeah, he fought for us enough for us to be like, okay, we have to do this for him.
Right. And that's what's so weird is so the LPO that I had, right, that kid would have laid down in traffic for me if I told him to. And I didn't quite understand. I understood it because I've done it, but it's you don't think about it the same way when it's you that they're doing stuff for. But it's that's a lot of the time, I can motivate people using other things, but a lot of the time what ends up happening is they're not doing it for the Navy, for God and country, for the submarines. They're doing it for you, for their leader.
Right.
And it's weird to think about it that way, but that's a lot of the times that's what's happening. And a lot of times when you can't get them to respond to you, that it's the same thing. They're bucking you and what's the word? Rebelling because of you, because they don't respond to you and don't trust you. And so the follow-on question part of this is, so I have seen it before where, and I mean, he'd been around a while. I've seen when rank is used as an incentive, which for nuclear trained people, it is because they have a hard time retaining you guys because from what I understand, a couple of my best friends are nukes that got out of the Navy and are now doing other things. And one of them works in power plants and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's the standard that you guys are held to and the training that you guys get is levels above what civilians do. So if they get the opportunity to hire you guys, they're going to do it. They're oh yeah, these guys are robots. This is what's up. These guys are going to be great operators. We're never going to have any issues with them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. They do what they're told. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the military background doesn't hurt either, right? Because you're going to do what you're told. You're going to be on time. You're going to, not going to have a meth problem, probably, stuff like that.
Probably, yeah.
But they have a really hard time retaining you guys. So the huge reenlistment bonuses and the pro pay and the rank as an incentive for star reenlistments and stuff.
But it's just because of the difference. The retention, I think, is the difference between what the pay is in a civilian plan versus what the pay is in the Navy.
Yeah.
But it's everybody puts benefits aside.
Yeah, I've always made the argument though that why don't they just pay you guys more? You want to make as much as nukes? Go be a nuke. It's you know what I mean. Because it's not we do this in the civilian world where people just get paid based on your time or age or something. You get paid the same as everyone. It doesn't make any sense. What you guys do is extremely demanding. Like you said, a lot of times I got to go on Liberty when all the nukes had to stay and shut down the reactor, and they'd stay at work later and sit through all that god awful training and all the other demands on you guys. And I mean, you could even make a case for the risks you guys take for exposure and everything else. It's they should get paid more money. Their job is really, really difficult and kind of miserable sometimes, unless they're one of those unicorns. So it's
right.
Because the problem I have with rank as an incentive, and it's for everyone anywhere, right, is because musicians, and I don't know if this is still true, but for most of the services, when they bring a musician in to be part of the Navy band or whatever, and I want to say maybe it was just the Air Force. I don't know if the Navy does this, but they would come in as first classes.
Yeah, I heard it was like you get like, this is again a rumor. I know nothing about Navy musicians. It was like,
I'm not claiming to be an expert either, but yeah,
it was like getting paid based on how many instruments you can play or something like that. Like it was like a different pay incentive.
Yeah.
I don't know like I said, I don't know anything about it. It's just like you E4s whenever we were seeing Navy bands play and stuff like that is just talk between each other of like
But regardless, is like, so there's times where, and I've known a guy that like made chief on his first submarine, like in his first enlistment as a nuke, because he was a staff pickup, and so he showed up, made first class 5 seconds later, and didn't even get his Dolphins, and then they made him the LPO, and then he made chief like right after he got his Dolphins, and it's like, so I'm supposed to, and not like I'm not gonna, because I have to get this guy up to speed because he's wearing anchor stork and he's going to be leading sailors whether I like it or not, but we've set that guy up to fail also by advancing them so quickly,
too quickly.
And bringing him into a subset of the organization where we say things like, we're a product of our experience. What experience? That guy doesn't have any experience.
He's been in since breakfast. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I feel like there are times where when we use Rika as an incentive, we set people up to fail. And I'm wondering,
I agree.
I was kind of wondering how you felt about it and if you ever saw that happen. Because it always like enraged me when I would see it happen, because we'd get staff pickups, they'd get their fish, and then they're like, "You're the LPO," and it's like, can he get a minute to be a junior enlisted sailor for 5 seconds? And it's like, I know you guys do stuff at nuke school or whatever where it's like there are operational reactors there, so it's like not like he doesn't have some experience.
It's nothing like the fleet. The fleet's just, it's completely different. It's like the rules that you have as far as like operations are the same.
Right.
And they're even more visible there, right? Because like you're working with civilian like entities and stuff like that. They're there all the time, right? Like compared to like in the fleet where like you have the same requirements, but like you don't always feel like you're being watched all the time, I guess. So it's like up to every individual person to just maintain their like the standard that they're supposed to have, that kind of thing. So I think it makes people like relax a little bit more once they get to the fleet, because they don't feel like they're being constantly watched. Right. Like I said, not saying that should change how people do stuff. Right. But like I think it just kind of makes you feel a little bit more like, I don't have to stress as hard because I don't feel like there's constantly eyes on me, that kind of stuff. But like I've seen plenty of people like get put in leadership positions like really early. Like I showed up to the fleet, like I re-enlisted in prototype, right? Like I was one of those people. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's like everyone's like, wait till you get to the fleet so you can. It's like I already knew that I was gonna, because I was like, I'm not turning down that bonus for anything, so I'd rather re-enlist as soon as possible to have the least amount of time on my contract.
Right.
I knew
made a horrible mistake.
I knew that the first re-enlistment was gonna happen for me, regardless. So I'm like, let me just do it sooner than later. So I showed up as a second class, and, I didn't have any fish. And like, it's not like I was necessarily put in any kind of leadership position, but like, I think two years after I showed up, like we had a couple first classes who left. Like they were the people that were like 6 and out. Right. So it's like, they left before they even got paid first class. Like they left the Navy. So like I got made the LPO, 2 years on the boat. And then I was the LPO until the last 2 months that I was on the boat, the last 2 or 3 months or so. It's like I got put in that position. Like we were a division that didn't have any first classes at that time. Like it wasn't until like it was, I made LPO, and then like 8 or 9 months later is when I put on first class, so it's like, but it was like all second classes, and then like a few, like 2 or 3, third classes.
And they were all pretty junior too, right? Like, cause
so like we had like, there was a time where we were like really undermanned. Like we couldn't man a 3-section watch bill. It was terrible. Right. Like we had our chief,
we had a bunch of random people standing reactor technician and stuff to like,
we had like, different divisions like EDIV. It was crazy, but it's like, even like our senior had to stand reactor operator for us to do maintenance because we didn't have enough people. We only had a few people. And then we had one of our guys was FSA, and it was like, oh man. That was it was a good time. I would never do it again. It's like, like the people that get like either they re-enlist or like as soon as they get to the fleet, they take the second class exam and become second classes. Like I expect something from like my second classes to be like, hey, you need to show these, third classes that are showing up to the boat. Like you need to show them how to qualify. You need to show them how to do maintenance. Like, like they need to learn how the division runs, and it's like, but they got here.
They just got
a few months ago.
Yeah. And that's like, what I feel like it stunts your growth almost, where it's like, not there are guys, and I'm sure girls. I don't have that experience with female enlisted on submarines, so that's why I say guys so much. I suck at pronouns.
Yeah.
The guys I've seen that there's guys I've seen that have succeeded after making chief in 7 years or something. Like they go,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're the right type of like personality. They've kind of like taken on the right leadership rare, mentality. It's rare. I agree with that.
It's really rare. And that's what I like. There used to be a time and service requirement to make chief, and I want to say it was like 11 or 12 years. And I'm like, that should be real again. Like, because I read a story once in the Navy Times about and I'm not judging him, especially if he listens, a damage controlman that made chief in like 5.5 years. Like, that should not be possible. That should not be possible. When you think about what we demand of chiefs and what we expect of them, and then like even like what we preach organizationally, it's like, how do you come into that subset of the organization with all those parameters? It's like we talk about we're a product of our experience and blah blah blah, and it's like that he's been in the Navy since breakfast. Like that doesn't make any sense, man. And it's like not only like to be the leader that you're expected to be, not just by the mess, but by the junior sailors and the officers and everything else. It's like I'm expected to be able to brief the CO. I'm expected to be able to advise officers on what they should do. I'm expected to be able to train junior officers, which, oh, by the way, become future COs. I can't do any of those things without the experience at level that I have. And it's like, I made chief in 9.5 years. I was barely ready. And I was on a special projects platform where they kept me there as a chief. I thought I was going to go somewhere else and get some training wheels, and they were going to nerf some stuff for me. No. Like most ridiculous submarine in the fleet, first chief's tour, you'll be fine. Go. Like, I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing? Okay. Like no fleet returnees. We were undermanned. I was just like, oh. And then they're like, oh, you need to be the career counselor too. It's like, wow. Normally that's a first class, but no. It's like, okay, cool. I'm still trying to figure out how to chief and put my anchors on it correctly. And you're like, oh yeah, be the career counselor too.
I think it's just one of those things where like my personal like feeling of it, like if I were to stay in, like make chief, whatever the case is, right? Cause like I'm up to take the exam in January. Yeah. Like, depending on what goes on. Right.
Which for you, I almost feel like it's an average time frame for you too. Like you're not even that fast. Cause it's like 7 years. Like, so you'd make it at like 8.
Yeah, right. So it's like a pretty normal time, insane. Right? Yeah, it's like I put on first class. Yeah, like I put on first class at like 4.5 years, right? Like that's when I got frocked. I didn't start getting paid till like June, so it was like 5 years and 2 months or so. So it's like I don't feel like I'm necessarily fast or anything like that. I don't feel like I'm like I'm not an EP sailor. I'm a pretty regular MP guy. But yeah, so it's just like one of those things where it's like it's a conversation that I find myself having a lot. Like, and I'm not like big on the Navy, right? Like I wouldn't say that I'm against it, but it's like I'm not like super like heavy into the Kool-Aid or any, like however you want to put it, right? It's like to me it's a job, and I just want to do my best at what I'm paid to do.
Is it because your passion is elsewhere, obviously, or is it because of the experience and you're just like, nah, this isn't for me? Like,
I mean, I think it's just kind of both. Like, it's like, I think that there's, I mean, not necessarily just both. I think there's a lot of things where it's like, I feel like, hey, I can make more money doing this job, like out somewhere. And like, I know like 6 or 7 people that were, RC divers 6 and out, and they're making like 40, 50 grand more a year than I am.
Crazy.
They're, they sound so happy.
Yeah. It's so hard to, it's so hard.
But the grass is always greener, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy, he was a nuke mechanic on my first boat, and he got out as a second class, I think. Mm-hmm. And he went back to, I think, South Carolina, and whatever he was doing, he's like working for the city for some reason. I guess he just didn't want to do anything with nuclear power for a while, at least. And he said, he told my buddy a story one day where he was like in some kind of protective suit, kind of like a Tyvek suit, and he like goggles and like a respirator on, and he was jackhammering in a sewer, and it's literally like feces and urine, and he's running a jackhammer, and he's like smiling and laughing. And his buddies, when they got out, they're like, "What is wrong with you? Like, do you actually like this?" He goes, "No, but I'm not on a submarine." And he was just like, I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I get it, but because I like officers, guys that want to be officers for the same reason. It's like, ask an enlisted guy, like a first class, like, hey, why do you want to be an officer and not a chief? It's like, because they make more money, and people like think that's some kind of like a negative response of some kind. And it's like,
money is a big motivator for people.
Money is a huge motivator, especially if
money
like,
and liberty.
Especially if it's like, you got to think long term. Like, I take better care of my family, my pension's going to be bigger. Like,
if you think about retirement, like I think a lot of people default to officer, and if not, they should.
You need officers. You know, like it's not. It's I don't want. I would rather have an officer with enlisted experience, especially if it was positive enlisted experience, than, you know, a brand new baby. Not like, you know, obviously if you train them correctly, they're going to be good too. But it's always easier to relate. And I don't know. I like prior enlisted officers. There's a small part of me that thinks that everybody should come from the enlisted, like all officers should come from the enlisted force. Just because. The experience I've had with like brand new baby JOs, I'm just like, why do I have to salute you?
Their job is so terrible. Like, you know, it's like you get out of college and then you show up to a submarine, and then they're like, just for 3 years, they're just so sad.
Destroyed, man.
Like their soul is just gone.
I certainly do not envy them, but you got to think part of that is because they don't know anything when they show up. So it's like,
but then they get put in these positions of leadership. I mean, it's along the same lines. It's like they got out of college and like, then they went to the Navy and then they're put in these positions of huge responsibility, and ridiculous admin requirements and everything. And like, they're just like, oh, by the way, I guess I can work 20 hours today.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you had these clear. Like I do not envy junior officers on submarines one bit. Like, no. But I guess that's kind of part of it, though. Is like, would their progression as a JO still be the same if I commissioned a second class after their first tour on a submarine? You know, like if I commissioned a nuke ET, which I know like everyone would hate me because you guys are so rare and like it's so hard to get. But like if I commissioned a CS to be the food service officer, if I commissioned a LS to be the supply officer, it's going to be so much less painful because like,
they're going to know what they're doing. They're going to have more experience in what they were, you know, like what they're supposed to be the leader of, because they already had years of experience with it.
Well, and it adds a burden to me and other people too. Like, so and I love her to death. My brand new baby ensign shows up. I told her, you are not allowed to talk to anybody that outranks you without me right there next to you. Like, I'm talking like department heads, I'll let you take those lumps, but like XO, Cobb, CO especially, I'm like, I don't care if he beckons you into his stateroom, you say, hang on, sir, I got to go get my senior chief. And I doubt he's going to stop you because he knows that I need to be standing next to you. And there's going to be times where she's going to be forced into those situations so that the CO can punch her in the face so she learns some lessons. But like, not literally, obviously.
No.
But it's like, it adds a burden to me because I literally am like looking around, like I got to put a bell around her neck. I'm like, where's my supply officer? Like just to make sure she's not doing anything she's not supposed to be doing. It's like having a child almost. I mean, obviously, like I'm making like I'm using examples that are like, she's very intelligent, worked really hard, but there were times where it was like I had to go stop what I was doing and go fix something because the CO's flipping out because she said something that wasn't true. Because she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know what she was saying. Like, she didn't know anything. Like, and made the mistake of being too scared to say, hang on, let me go get my chief for the LS side or my senior chief for the anything else.
Yeah. It's just, it's hard to get put in that position of like leadership so early on. And then they're just like, what's expected of them. To like, again, for somebody who just pretty much got out of college and then like, especially showing up to the boat as a department head. Like, that's terrible.
It's pretty unrealistic, the expectations, at least on submarines. I can't obviously compare it to other things, but the expectations we put on them are pretty unrealistic in a lot of ways, where it's just, especially like, God, when the first qualified officer deck watch for certain, like I was sitting there as dive, right? I barely feel like I should be trusted with that kind of responsibility. Like I'm I knew what I was doing and I was pretty okay at it. But like, there's a large part of me that constantly feels like an imposter while I'm sitting in the dive chair. Like, are they really letting me do this? Like, this sounds like a terrible plan. Like, I feel like the incident report saying they put the cook chief in charge of ship safety, like that line by itself is like root cause, just copy and paste.
Yeah, but then they put like a junior officer who's been there for a year or a year and a half or so.
Baby, yeah. I just got qualified officer deck yesterday on watch with me, and she's asking me like, what do we do here? Like, and I'm like, you're asking me? Like, oh my God, this is a terrible, terrible position to be in. Everybody hold on, because this PD trip's going to be real. Yeah, it was nuts. It was like we were all pretending to be submariners. And it was like, how did this happen? I did a PD trip with the engineer, and he turned and looked at me after we got to PD, and nobody showed up. You know, we like invite everybody, and normally like the the CDO or the captain or at least the cop is in control during the PD. No one showed up because it was a midwatch.
Oh, okay.
We get to PD. We nail it. Like, it was good. Not a bad sea state. It was a good trip. We get to PD. Once we're steady at PD, he comes up to me. He goes, "Senior, you want to hear something crazy?" I'm like, "Sure, sir." He goes, "That was the first time I've ever taken a submarine to PD in real life."
In real life, yeah.
I was like, get away from me right now. I'm about to put my hands on you. I was like, just go back over there and try not to screw anything up.
Yeah, pretend like you know what you're doing. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Like, you waited until now? You didn't want to like maybe have a conversation with me ahead of time and make sure you had some semblance of an idea of what was happening? Oh God. I lost years of my life staying on that watch, like just from the stress and anxiety.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
Years of my life. Yeah, man. So the music stuff, like, tell me about like what you're doing. Like, we'll use this opportunity to plug all the things, but like, what are you doing now? Like, I know you're playing a lot of shows. You have, and I'm not a cool music kid, but like, I don't know what the difference between an EP and like a normal CD is or whatever.
Yeah. So like an EP is like an extended play, right? Okay. So, and like, as somebody who's a musician, I should probably know more about it, right? But like, I think it's anything.
Been doing a podcast for 5.5 years, I should probably know more too, but I barely know enough to get by.
So I think an EP, like the rules, you know, quote unquote, are like anything less than half an hour, right? So it's like a single, like is like the one song, right? And like if you have more than one song, then you put out an EP. Okay. And like, so mine just happens to be like 20 minutes and you know, whatever amount of seconds.
Gotcha.
So it's like, I used the time during quarantine that, you know, it was like, hey, just come in on your duty days and stay in day after. And like, I was like, I made it a point. I was like, hey, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to focus really hard on music. Cause I'd been doing shows for like 9 or 10 months. Like I'd finally like broken out of my shell and like decided like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start doing shows. Cause I kind of did it. Not really in Charleston. It was like, I'd go to like the waterfront park there with my guitar and just like, you know, tune my guitar and like, you know, mumble some words for half an hour. Yeah. And then like, you know, every now and then like, you know, somebody would be like, hey, that sounds, you know, pretty cool. And then they just, you know, throw like $1 in the, in the open guitar case. Yeah. But yeah, so it's like, I wanted to focus this time. Like I just released my first song back in January. And like, I don't know, as a musician, I'm like, I think it's important to release some kind of album. So like, I didn't want to make it anything like ridiculous. Like I didn't have the expectation of like, I'm going to write 12 songs in 15 minutes, you know, like it was like, I spent 2 months, like the first month was like heavy into writing and like focusing on like the stuff that I wanted to write about and like the stuff that I felt, because I'm like very particular about the lyrics that I use, I guess. So like I spent the first month doing that. Then I spent the next month recording, you know, and like I can only do so much during, you know, during quarantine. I couldn't really go anywhere. So it's like, I just, you know, like over the years of playing music and like, you know, pretty much just being like a bedroom musician, like I just accumulated a bunch of recording stuff. So I started recording, and then I like found a producer in Las Vegas, and I was like, hey, I want to send you all my stuff. Can you, you know, like mix and master this? And then he did that. And then I released the EP, and pretty much since then, I haven't really been able to play too many shows. I have like a block party show that's like a weird.
And that's just because of COVID, I'm assuming. Like,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So it's like I was playing shows pretty like I had like 5 or 6 shows a month. Like I was doing pretty good.
I saw them, dude. I was trying to make it to. I kept telling my wife, I'm like, we got to go. Just show up to one of these eventually, and then
it was like
happened.
It was super fun to like kind of break out and like be able to do that. And like I was doing covers, right? Because like I didn't even have my own original music, so it's like, but people like that a little bit better because like nobody wants to hear me talk about sad boy stuff.
Have you seen that new Will Ferrell movie on Netflix?
What is it called?
Screaming at him to play that one song, like. Yeah, the one where it's like a singing competition. I forget.
Yeah. Like I saw, I didn't get to see it, but I saw like weirdly enough, like I didn't get to see the movie, but I've seen bits and pieces of it from like I think it was like Jimmy Fallon or maybe Conan. Like I saw like bits and pieces of it.
Where it's like when they play like the local bar in Iceland or wherever they're at, there's some random song that all the patrons just want to hear, and it's like it almost sounds like a kid's song, and they're like they say stuff along with it or whatever. And so the whole premise of the movie is they go do this singing competition, and they're not really that talented, but they end up winning through a crazy turn of events because it's a Will Ferrell movie.
All right, yeah.
But then so they come back and they're basically like famous celebrity singers now.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
They're in the bar again, like playing for some party. I think somebody got married, and he's like, all right, now we're going to play the song that won us this competition. And then all the patrons are just like, shut up and play that song. Like the one that's like the cheesy child. Like they're just like, we don't want to hear your original music. We just want to hear this song.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Like, even though you're famous and
yeah, that's kind of how it goes, like you just kind of go like, that's like
shut
the biggest part about
Smash Mouth.
Yeah. Like I hear like Freebird, like I hear that all the time. Like whenever I'm playing, I'm like, I'm not going to do that, but here's like
I
Bruno
like
Mars
too,
or something.
But no.
Yeah, it's like I'd never learned Wonderwall. Like
I'm not gonna play that.
It's like I don't want to do it. It's like, but that kind of thing. So it's like I was doing shows consistently. COVID kind of put a damper on that, but there's more important things going on than live music. Right. Yep. And then so like I have a show on Friday. And it's going to be like a block party, but it's like the weirdest show because like I'm not used to playing in this kind of environment
or something.
Yeah, so it's like I'm going to be in somebody's yard, and then everybody's going to be on their front porches, like all around the neighborhood. And
that's
like,
interesting.
Yeah, it's like a weird concept for a show. I'd never like really done anything
though.
like that. It is cool. Like that's why. Cool. Yeah, that's why it's like I got an email. It's like, hey, we'd really like you to play at our block party. I'm like, I don't know if we can do this. Like, no, it's okay. We're all going to be like at least 6 feet apart, if not further. Yeah. It's like, okay, sure.
That's dude. I feel like you should film that. I feel like that would be really cool.
Oh, I got like my.
Are you already?
I have like a manager because I'm big time. Not really, but like, the guy that books my shows, right?
I know,
like,
a famous person.
Yeah, lovingly refer to him as my manager. So it's like he helps book my shows. He gets kind of like my foot in the door for. Nice. Because I kind of got tired of doing it. He knows a lot more people than I do. So he can talk to like people that are in charge of entertainment at different venues and like get me booked there. But it's like I tried really hard to like keep my music and my Navy life separate, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's like I especially didn't really want anybody to like, I'm going to follow this guy because he's in the military. It's like I wanted people to like, I want to follow this guy because he likes.
No, I
like his music, that kind of thing.
I appreciate that a lot for the kind of what I told you at the beginning, and I've talked about it on the podcast all the time. But like, why I don't want people to know this is me, not because I'm not obviously not ashamed of it. Like I'm not embarrassed or anything. It's like I just don't want the attention on me. I want the attention on what I'm trying to accomplish. And
right, yeah. I feel I feel the exact same way about my music. It's like I'd rather somebody be like, I like this guy because of I like his music, or I like the words that he says, whatever the case is.
That's dope too, because I know so many people that would like. I've seen a lot of like, I'm just gonna air quote like content creators that like go way out of their way to let everybody know that they're a veteran and they're like, or they're in the military and they like all these pictures of them in their uniform.
Yeah. It's like the day that I'm like playing a show and like my dress blues or something is the day that my music career is over. Please do.
I will tackle you off of the stage.
Please. Yeah. Cause it's like, that's not the type of person that I really want to like. I don't want to be that type of person. But like, and I got some more music that I've been writing, so it's like awesome. I'm just kind of feeling it out. Like I'm writing the music that I want to write because it's not like I have like a huge following or anything like that.
That's the way to do it, though. That's how you get a huge following. Let me tell you, like, and I'm not saying I have a huge following, but I'm in a pretty small like niche, and it's like I know I don't know. I don't even know how to compare it to other podcasts because that's how dumb I am as far as like
but you're talking about the things that you want to talk about.
Well, no, I mean, so like for how successful it is, quote unquote, if you compare it like statistically, like for the last 2, like this year, we're gonna like each year, it seems like it's just like compound interest, man. Like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But like, so like last year we did like 30,000 listens overall over the whole year. And so like this year is going to be it's probably going to be around 50. Like I'm going to exceed 30,000 this year, like probably this month.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like snowballing and it's just getting bigger and bigger. But I'm telling you, like all I've ever done is what I want to do. And what I want to do is what I think sailors need. And I use a lot of their feedback. So I'm really doing what they need, what they want or need or whatever. Yeah. But then I just like see stuff and I'm like, I seen you doing your music and I was just like, that sounds, I wanted anybody, I'm a sucker for like any military person that's trying to do something like, like a veteran owned business or like I share people's stuff all the time. And like a lot of times they freak out because they know about the podcast and they're like, I just started this blog. I can't believe you shared it. Thank you so much. And I'm like, I'm just a dude, man. Like I'm just a dude doing a podcast. I'm not special. And like, so whatever exposure I can get for people, but then also like an added bonus, you're a nuke and enlisted. Yeah. So it's like, I get to have those conversations too, but I'm a big sucker to like try to help people out with that too. So like, I'm a big Joe Rogan podcast fan, right? And I know there's a lot of people that don't like it and whatever for like some certain reasons, but the biggest takeaway for me is like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And it's like, there's certain choices I've made to try to broaden the audience, like not cursing, which for people that know me in real life know is a big ask. But it's
who is this?
Yeah, who is this person? What have you done with this season?
Yeah.
But it's also like I did it because I like the point of it is to help people out. But it's like I just do whatever I want, man. And it's like there's been a couple of things that I've hesitated on a little bit because I don't feel equipped yet, but that's the only reason. Like I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to talk to whoever I want about whatever I want. I go out of my way to not like trash the Navy and stuff, but it's like I'm critical of things sometimes. But yeah, man, the moral of the story being just like you're gonna, by being authentic and doing what you want and like what's meaningful to you and what's going to make you happy is what's going to get you that following anyway. Like if you're trying to like replicate somebody else or be like artificially like follow some path to just for fame and fortune, like good luck, man.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling on it as well. You know, I just kind of like, I'm just enjoying like it's not like I can, you know, like the end goal for me like is not like a record deal or anything like that, you know, because like all the research that I've done on the music industry, because, you know, since I've grown up in the Navy, I've learned, hey, you should, you know, look into stuff before you do stuff, you know, before you join, you know,
read the book.
You should learn something about what you're going to, you know, get into. So it's like my research on the music industry and like how it is, it's like, you know, record deal's not really my end goal. It's like, I want to stay independent as long as I can. Yeah.
In the day and age we live in though, like, do you really need a record deal?
Yeah. I mean, like, I know,
what I mean?
You know, like, there's plenty of independent musicians that are doing just fine. They're making a living off of music without it. You know, it's like the record deal just comes into like distribution.
Yeah. And just being a content creator too, though, where it's like, if you almost approach it like, and I'm sure people are doing this already. I'm not about to like unveil some plan. Yeah. But like, just being like a content creator where you approach it through like social media, YouTube, all those things. And it's like, you can monetize a lot, like Patreon, all that crap.
Yeah.
Where you could turn it into a viable income stream.
Right.
Just by being independent and doing your own thing, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like, cause that's kind of my dream is because this is a passion project. Like I don't make money off this, but like my dream is when I retire, like if I could find a way to monetize this, which is probably going to look like expanding the platform a ton, right? Like,
right, absolutely.
And I've got some ideas, like in YouTube's one of them, Patreon's, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But like, if I can combine my pension with like monetizing this and maybe doing a few other things, like that's like I would love.
Yeah, you're set.
Like it'd be amazing. So that's the dream. It's not a record deal, but it's something.
Yeah. I mean, like the dream is just to be able to pay my bills with music,
for sure.
You know?
But I'm not trying to get rich.
I'm not really looking for that.
How has what's the response been to the EP since, because it's only been out like maybe a month, right?
Yeah, so it's June 26th is when it came out.
Okay, so a little.
So it's like Yeah, it's like I hate to say it because it just sounds like I'm just like blowing my head up, but it's like
a lot.
yeah, I really like it's been pretty good. Like I haven't really heard anything negative about it, which I hate. I hate so much.
Yeah,
I'm like,
dude,
please tell me what's
Reddit.
wrong with it.
Go find a sub that you can post your stuff to, and I'm sure you'll find all kinds of negative, like
it's like I feel like that's like just like what you were saying earlier. I feel like it's the best way for me to get better is to like, hey, I really hate that you did this. It's like, hey, it's like I said, I just kind of like everybody's just super nice. It's like all my Instagram is just flame emojis. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, how do I? Give me a sad face every now and again.
Dude. Like I get so many weird comments on Instagram about like just like stupid bots trying to sell me followers or like weird like porn sites. Like
the big one for me recently was like
weird
the logo designers and stuff like that. I'll get a few of those every now and again. It'll be like 3 or 6 on a post. Yeah.
Get on Fiverr, dude. You pay $20 and get a sick logo.
That's I messaged one of them back one time. Like I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and be nice. I'm like, hey, like go to fiverr.com. And he's like, can you go on Fiverr and make me an account? I'm like, no, like I gave you, it's like I gave you the path that you need to go to be a like, this is as far as I'm taking it for you. Like, good luck. Yeah. And then just like, all right, block, it's like,
I just block them, dude. I don't even try. Like I had this weird interaction with a kid that I'm not even sure he was ever actually in the Navy. I think he might have just stole pictures from people. But like, get this. So, and maybe I'll just tell you offline, but the name of his clothing company was like something that a sailor would never, ever, ever, ever in a bazillion years, like a junior enlisted anyway, name a clothing company. And so I'm just like, it immediately set off alarm bells in my head. And he basically wanted to like absorb the podcast into his umbrella, quote unquote. And I'm like, what umbrella? Like I have a bigger platform than you right now. And I'm not again trying to sound arrogant. I'm like, no,
I got you. Yeah. It's just,
I was like, I'll entertain, like we can have a conversation about you coming on the podcast and like discussing what you're doing. Cause I do that all the time with like clothing, like veteran owned everything. I love that.
Yeah.
There was something real weird going on there. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. And I just blocked him. I'm like, this just feels so, and maybe I was wrong. But it felt so strange. And like, I was just like, this can't be real, dude. I'll tell you the name of it I don't want to blow. I don't
I know.
Bash anybody, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I get excited when I see, especially cause I know you, but anytime I see sailors that are doing something really cool like that, like there's a BM2 that follows the podcast and everything that makes these crazy paddles, like his Instagram handles Keeping the Tradition.
Oh,
and
nice.
It's like the paddles he makes, they're probably like 3 feet long. I just ordered some for some people that are leaving the command I'm at, but so I haven't actually seen him in real life yet, but he's got all these crazy, like really awesome, like videos and photos of them. But they're like, the whole paddle is like, I don't know if he airbrushes it or like screen prints vinyl or something. I don't know. But like the whole paddle is like super colorful and it has designs over the whole thing. And then it's got like really crazy, like fancy work on it with like paracord, but it's all like color schemes and design. The design's really cool. It's nuts, man. They're so cool. And so like that same thing, man, I blew him up and like, I'm kicking in business too. Like, cause I'm like, cause I don't even think he has a website yet, but I'm like, good God, man, you need to make this a business. Cause it's like the sickest thing I've ever seen. Like every retired chief ever has a CNC machine and they're like making all this crazy stuff. But it's like, this kid has got talent, man. Like, and his stuff is so cool.
It's always cool to see like people just kind of like outside outside of the Navy, just doing the things that they want to do, like doing like even like while they're still in the Navy, just like pursuing that like passion project or like trying to start a business, like me, like trying to start a business with like music that's not necessarily like Navy and or my job related, right? So it's like I'm trying to do something to like set myself up for like what I want to do. It's like that guy's doing the same thing. It's really cool to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I get pumped, man. So that's why I had to drag you on here and talk about it. And hopefully it gets you like some more exposure and stuff. Even though I've already shared like crap on social media, but like
and I appreciate it very much. Yeah.
No worries. Well, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Catching up with you.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Always fun talking to him, and I'm like not just proud of him, the guy that he is and the sailor that he is, but it's just fun to watch sailors that I know, that I don't know, that I've connected with through this podcast go on and do great things outside of the Navy, in the Navy, and then just like creative or other just intellectual pursuits, like whatever, man. Like it could be like just like sports or something where they like get really into a thing. Like I got really into Olympic weightlifting once, and still a thing that I do, but it's like, you know, got sick and stuff, so it's kind of on the back burner. But just seeing people like pursue becoming better versions of themselves is really exciting for me, and I really enjoy it. So that was really fun. A lot of stuff in the show notes, so check that out as well. And go check out Jon Gonzalez music on Facebook. He's got an EP out, all that fun stuff. So go check it out, and if you like it, support him. And then, as always, if you need anything from us, hit us up. Don't give up the ship podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Ship Podcast, or you can DM me on Instagram or Reddit, DGUTS We also have a sub there as well, so you can discuss the episodes if you want to come join us for doing that. It exists. And then, if you could support us, like, share, subscribe, review, all the things on all the platforms. It helps us out, get the word out, address whatever algorithmic demands each little provider has, so that the podcast gets where it needs to be. And then I am in debt 1 episode on officer programs. I am aware that I did this backwards. I just haven't had time to record a couple of hours on my own, because that's what that's going to be. So I will try to tackle that tomorrow. And that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship.